Hi there, crafters. Today's card has two elements and it really has that pop wow effect. One of the elements is a watercolor background and the other element is some heat embossing. So here I'm just picking the yellow for my watercolor background and I'm just going to put some of that onto the top of the ink pad and pick that up with the watercolor pen brush. And I'm just running the brush water over my hand to make sure that it's nice and runny before I go in and pick some of that ink up, and then I start watercoloring the piece of paper here. This paper is watercolor paper, but it's not your traditional like fibrous watercolor paper. It has a very shiny and smooth surface to it. It all has a sparkle, actually, a tiny little bit of a sparkle. It's quite beautiful paper. So here I want to make sure my yellow is good and dark, and so I'm just going back over it and making sure I have some dark splotches. That's exactly what I want, is some dark areas and some light areas and the watercolor look. And then I weigh it down. I just want to put some paper on it and weigh it down to let it dry. So I put that big thick pad of paper on it and I'm not happy with the color. So I go back again, and that's the beauty in watercolor. It is so forgiving. You could spread that around for days. It's amazing. Here I have my flowers that I've cut out on my Cricut. They kind of resemble a sunflower. And all that I wanted to do was get this background piece a little bit darker so that it looked more like seeds, and then have the foreground piece a little bit lighter. So I'm just sponging a little bit of color onto it. So I have these sponges and I'm just picking it up right off of the ink pad and putting it right straight onto the flower itself. And so here I am finishing off my flowers. I had done a couple off camera. And here I'm just curling the leaves or the petals of the flower. And I just want to give them a nice little curl and make them just kind of give them a 3D effect, or a more realistic effect, I guess. And then I use a pop dot to pop them up on top of each other, so it really gives the layered effect to those flowers, and especially once it's on the card, it really has a 3D effect to it that's just quite beautiful. So there I have my flowers done. So this is starting the embossing process. I'm using Versamark, which is like a glue, and I'm picking up my stamp from the stamp set, Nature, something Nature, I forget what it is, but it's from Stampin' Up anyway. And I put on the powder, the embossing powder, and here I'm just picking up the little specks that I couldn't shake off with some of the Versamark ink, and putting my embossing powder away. And then we use the heat tool and we heat it up, and it goes a plastic, like a plastic type look and feel to it. And I got a little bit down there, but that's okay because I'm going to cut around it a little bit. So it's perfectly fine. I really want to talk to you guys about cutting. So cutting is very important. And I might look like a professional here when this is all done, but really the cutting process has some important elements to it. One, you want very good scissors. I find that these scissors here are from close to my heart, and they are the best scissors that I've ever had. The second thing is that when you are cutting, you want to keep your scissor motion in your hand like you're constantly cutting, and you're going to be moving your other paper and not vice versa. You're not going to be chop, chop, chop with your scissors. What you're going to be doing is moving your paper around where you're cutting with the scissors. There is a difference. So that's how, and practice also. Practice makes perfect. I might look like a pro there, but really I am not a pro. I just have had lots of practice, and I learned that trick to have good scissors and to be rotating your paper and not your scissors. Those things really help. Here I'm just figuring out the layout of the card. Again, this is the Use What You Have series. And this was a Catherine Pooler card that she posted this week. I've talked about Catherine Pooler a lot lately. She has fabulous, wonderful cards. But I don't have any Catherine Pooler products, not a stitch, not a one. So I make do with what I have. And I cut these black elements out of the Cricut. And I cut the sunflowers out of the Cricut. And I'm just using what I have on hand to try to recreate this card. And so I love the way this card looks in the end. I cannot wait until you guys see it. So here I'm just fiddling around with the layout, trying to get it right. And I'm looking at my printout of her card is sitting over to the left of me. And I'm looking at that as I'm doing this. And see that watercolor background, how some of the edges show white and some of it show yellow. So I'm thinking about all of this as I was watercoloring as well. I'm really looking at her card and trying to get it almost identical. And so all these things help. She has her own set of watercolor crayons that I don't have. I have these Stampin' Up ones. You know what? They do just fine. It's perfectly fine. So another thing that I put onto this card is you see those black middles there under You Are Wonderful. Those are actually a black dahlia, and they're very 3D. They're made of plastic, and I've had them for about 6 years. And I end up putting those in the center of the flowers, and I love how this card turned out. And that You Are Wonderful, the black and the white and the yellow. And I also make this card off camera in pink. So I'm doing a pink one and a yellow one at the same time. For the pink one, I do more of a daisy flower. And actually, of the two, in the end, I'll be honest, the pink one's my favorite. As good as this yellow one's looking right now, you wait until you see the pink one. So again, here I'm just popping up the You Are Wonderful with some pop dots. Those are Stampin' Dimensionals. Or dollar store. I do buy a lot of my stuff at the dollar store. I've talked about that before. And so I'm just finishing placing those dahlias in the center of the card, and it is starting to really look wonderful. And here I'm just cutting the paper. I'm cutting a black background and then a yellow card base. And then I adhere them together afterwards. And if you guys like these videos on the series of Use What You Have, please send me some ideas of what you would like me to recreate. I would love some ideas from you guys. Or if there's a technique that you would like me to use, please send me that as well. So also too, if you're watching this, you're probably on my YouTube channel watching this. So please hit the subscribe button. And I'm just finishing off this card here. In the end of the video, I show both the pink one and the yellow one, and I show you also Catherine Pooler's example, which was my inspiration for these. So I'm just putting a final touch there on that piece. It didn't want to lay flat for me. Oh, look at those. You can also go to the Rocky Mountain Crafter and subscribe to my page at Facebook and Instagram. I love that pink one. That one just turned out so beautiful. There's Catherine Pooler's example right there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that these videos inspire you. Have a wonderful week ahead.